What's going on, everybody? Welcome into Blazers Uprise Live here on a Monday. Today is a Monday. Eric, we got 5 games for picks against the spread. We're going to be picking NBA Cup games today, and we also have to talk about some trade stuff we talked about last night, but I just kind of want to recap the conversations we had last night on the post-game show in case you were not with us. We're going to talk about the veterans that the Blazers must trade, as well as what to expect back for them, because we got that question a lot last night, so we just want to rehash that conversation. Eric, how's your Monday going?
Well, not too bad. Just got home from work. How about you, Tori?
Just got home from work, kind of. I've been working all day, so stream going live a little bit late. Chat voted for the one game today in the chat poll. We got Knicks, so whenever we're going live a little bit late, I've just been tossing the chat poll in the chat early. So thank you for those of you that voted in that, and hopefully all of you are having a good start to your week. And yeah, man, it's a light week for us. We don't stream again until Thursday, but actually, I think we should push that stream to Friday. I think we'll have 2 streams Friday. We'll have our next post-game show on Friday. The Blazers don't play the whole week. And then we will also have Blazers Uprise Live on Friday. There will be 8 games to pick from. So we won't be with you guys Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday this week. Very light week for your Portland Trail Blazers. And hopefully they can get some guys back soon. Well, the main guy being Donovan Clingan. Can't wait to see him suit up. There's only 5 games between now and Christmas, so light schedule of December. That's how things are now with the NBA Cup. And we're going to pick those games. Let's first take a look at the standings. As Eric, I'm catching up to you. I'm coming, man. 7-2 to follow up my 5-0 day. I'm 12-2 in my last 2 days of picks against the spread. I'm only 3 games back of Eric. Unfortunately, you keep doing well, so it's hard to catch up to you. But I've whittled that lead down from 8 to 3 in the past couple of days, and we'll see if I can whittle it down more with these NBA Cup games. Eric at 59-43, setting the bar. We actually had an above 500 day on Thursday, 62-55. We've struggled all season long, so nice to see us actually have a pretty good day. Shout out to Trevin. He and I went 7-2. Eric and Brendan and Jackson all went 6-3. Shout out to Jackson for finally having a good day. And then down at the bottom, Javon and Connor, both 2-7. Rough days for them. Those are the picks against the spread standings.
Yeah.
Alrighty.
I don't like you including us in the we part.
Who's us? Oh, the struggling part? Nah,
Yeah.
We're up here at the top. We're veterans. We're supposed to be up here.
You and me and Crush and Trev, man, we're fine. Everyone else is bringing us down.
Yeah, for real. For real. There's a 6-game gap between 4 and 5. So we'll see which one of you 5 and below can actually close that gap and climb up into this top tier that me, you, Crushables, and Trevin are in. All right, let's jump into game number 1. It is the Toronto Raptors hosting the New York Knicks. We've already voted on this in the chat poll, and chat ended up going Knicks. But Eric, for anybody that hasn't picked yet, do you want to restate the injuries? The Knicks are 7.5-point road favorites.
Yeah, so the Knicks are without Mitchell Robinson, and the Raptors are without Emmanuel Quickley and Bruce Brown.
Yep. I have not seen this game at all. I am going to go with the Toronto Raptors. The Knicks are 8.5-point favorites. I misspoke. My bad. 8.5-point favorites. The New York Knicks are. The Knicks got 62% of the vote for chat. And then we have a ton of picks listed in the Discord, Eric, so you can rattle those off. We got all the people that I normally say in there, so it should be pretty easy.
All right, Steven's going with the Raptors. Zach is going with the Knicks.
All right.
Brendan, Knicks. Knicks for Aeromancer, 503, and Crushables.
All right.
Knicks for myself as well. That's all I see in there. In chat, we have Trevin is going Raptors. Jackson went Knicks.
Javon says, I'm sorry, Eric. And Connor says he's coming for Jackson's last place spot.
Javon, Raptors. Connor, Knicks.
All right. That is all. You said Javon, Raptors, Connor, Knicks.
Yeah.
That makes this a 9v4 in favor of the Knicks. All right. Game number 2. This game is on Tuesday. This is where we get into NBA Cup games. They already got spreads for these over at BetUS. You can check them out. We got the Milwaukee Bucks hosting the Orlando Magic. The Bucks are 7.5-point home favorites.
Okay, Brendan did come up clutch.
Yep, always super clutch.
Thank you, Brendan. For the Magic, out is Paolo Banchero, Franz Wagner, and Gary Harris. It looks like Chris Livingston out for the Bucks, and then questionable Jonathan Isaac for the Magic. But keep in mind, I don't know if any of these are going to be. They might not have to report their full injury thing quite yet, so it's subject to change.
If you get in on this line right now, this is the line you get in on.
Yep.
So the line is very valid right now.
Correct.
So I'm gonna go with the Bucks. The Magic missing Franz and Paulo, I think, will be a little bit too much for them in this one on the road. The Bucks have been playing better basketball. Still don't feel good about 7.5-point spread there, but I'll take the Bucks.
Bucks for Javon. Magic for Trevin. And then in the Discord, we've got, I'm going Bucks. Crushables is Knicks.
Crushables is Knicks?
Or sorry, Magic. Sorry. I was reading the first one again. 503 Bucks. Magic for Aeromancer. Bucks for Brendan.
Okay.
Magic for Zach. Bucks for Steven.
Steven's rolling with Dame. Would you look at that? We got Jackson going Bucks. We got chat going Bucks, 75% of the vote in chat. And we got Connor going with the Bucks as well. So we got another 9v4 in favor of the favorite, the Milwaukee Bucks. Game number 3, this will tip off approximately 6:30 p.m. Pacific time tomorrow. You got the OKC Thunder hosting the Dallas Mavericks. OKC is 4-point home favorites.
Let's see. For the Mavericks, Dante Exum, Jaden Hardy, Maxi Kleba, all outs. Questionable are Najee Marshall and PJ Washington, both with illnesses. So don't know what that means in terms of them playing or not, but that's what they're listed as. Out for the Thunder, Chet Holmgren, the center Jalen Williams, Ousmane Dieng, and Nikola Topic.
I'm going to go with the Dallas Mavericks. They've been playing really good basketball lately on a massive winning streak, so I'll take them and the points.
We got Thunder for Javon and Trevin.
Alrighty.
Mavericks for Connor.
Then in the Discord, you're going Thunder.
Yep.
Right? Okay. Crushables is going Mavericks.
503 Mavericks. Aeromancer Thunder. Thunder for Brendan as well. And then Mavericks for Zach and Steven.
Is that looking right on the screen? I'm trying to keep up. Crushables, I missed. Crushables went Mavericks.
Jackson's Thunder.
All right. Chat is Mavericks 67% of the vote, which makes this a 7v6 in favor of the Mavericks.
I'll just go through it. Okay, Steven. For Mavericks, Steven, Zach, 503, Crushables.
Connor, me, chat, everybody else Thunder.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, game number 4. These games are on Wednesday. Some more NBA Cup first round games. You got Trae Young heading to the Garden as the Knicks are 7.5-point home favorites. If you double down on the Knicks, you got to specify which game, because we're picking 2 Knicks games today, picking these NBA Cup games, and the Knicks are playing right now. So yeah, Knicks 7.5-point favorites at home against the Hawks.
All right, in this one, keep in mind, once again, 2 days from now, so you never know. But Cody Zeller, Seth Lundy out for the Hawks. Questionable, Jalen Johnson, Bogdan Bogdanovic. For the Knicks, they list Mitchell Robinson as out. Questionable is Karl Anthony Towns and Cam Payne.
Alrighty. Chat, there's your poll.
I'm guessing that means they're not really questionable because they're playing tonight.
Alrighty.
We got Hawks for Connor, Knicks for Jackson, Knicks for myself.
I'm also going Knicks.
Crushables is Knicks. 503 is Knicks. Aeromancer Knicks. Brendan Knicks. Steven and Zach are Hawks.
Alright, Steven, Zach, Hawks.
And Trevin, Hawks.
And Trevin is Hawks, and
Javon Knicks.
chat is Hawks. Javon Knicks. Alright, this is an 8v5 in favor of the Knicks, and the final NBA Cup first round game is Wednesday at approximately 6:30 p.m. Pacific. You got the Houston Rockets hosting the Golden State Warriors. This is going to be a great game. The Rockets are 2.5-point home favorites.
Looks like De'Anthony Melton is out for the Warriors. Questionable is Andrew Wiggins and Moses Moody. For the Rockets, questionable is Tari Eason and Fred VanVleet.
Alrighty.
And thank you once again, Brendan. I am going with the Warriors.
I am also going Warriors.
Crushables is Warriors. 503 Warriors. Aeromancer Warriors. Brendan Warriors.
I'm starting to not like going Warriors here.
And then Zach and Steven Rockets.
I think there's too much agreement here already. Don't feel good about it.
And then in chat we have Warriors for Connor, Jackson, and Trevin. And then Javon has gone Rockets.
Alright, and then chat is Warriors 100% of the vote.
Wow. Only 3 people voted though. Come on, people.
I'm tempted to change my pick. So going into this game, I was like, okay, Golden State has the playoff experience. Does that apply to an NBA Cup game? I don't know. But the Rockets are going to be geared up and ready to go, and they're at home, and Golden State hasn't played too well lately. I'm going to switch my vote to Houston. I'll roll with Steven, Zach, and Javon. We'll see if that backfires on me.
Thank you for taking it now.
Yeah, we'll see. I've been on a roll. Alrighty. Last time I changed my pick, too. It worked out. So, anyway, I'm going Rockets. We got 9v4 in favor of the Golden State Warriors. Time for double downs. I'll roll through the NBA Cup picks again. I don't really feel good about any of them. And let me take off this camera and these picks. All right. I will double down on the Knicks.
Which one? The second one?
The second one.
Okay. That was, well, the Warriors are Jets. Double down.
Okay. Anybody that doubled down on the first one, the first Knicks game, I'll just...
Well, there was some, or at least...
Yeah.
It was Crushables. Double down on the Knicks. My double down is the Bucks.
Eric, double down on the Bucks.
You got Crushables.
Yeah.
All right. 503's double down is second Knicks. Aeromancers is Bucks. Or no, Magic. Sorry, Magic.
Aero Magic.
Yeah. Brendan's is the Thunder. Zach is the Magic.
Ready?
And Stevens is the Rockets.
All right, he's doubling down on Houston again.
Jackson's is the second Knicks. And then let's see in chat. We got Hawks for Connor.
All right.
Rockets for Javon. Thunder for Trevon.
Righty, Trevin going Thunder again. So I'm just going to hide Crushables. Crushables is going first Knicks game. The other Knicks logos are going with the Knicks NBA Cup game as their double down. We got Arrow and Zach doubling down on the Magic. We got Brendan and Trevin doubling down on the Thunder. We got Javon and Steven on the Rockets. Chat by themselves with the Warriors. Connor on the Hawks and Eric on the Bucks. That concludes picks against the spread. Alrighty, looking forward to those NBA Cup games for real. Now, we got to have a conversation about, and we'll make this a pretty quick conversation. I just want to summarize as best we can the conversations we had last night on the post-game show. So, the Blazers, they lose by 9, but it felt like a 20-point loss. They cut it from like 20 back to 9 in the final minute or two. And the Blazers have been playing very bad basketball. They just haven't played well. And it's just coming to the realization that this team doesn't seem any better with these veterans. And it's funny because some people use that as an excuse to keep them around. And I don't think that these veterans are helping the team develop their identity, develop their young players. I don't think any of these guys are like true mentors like a Damian Lillard was for Anfernee Simons. Now we're talking about Anfernee Simons being one of the vets. And it's just time for this Blazer team to move on from Deandre Ayton and Jerami Grant and honestly Anfernee Simons for other reasons. But I just want to go one by one, explain why the Blazers need to move off from each player and what the goal should be in terms of a trade package, okay? Let's start with Deandre Ayton. Eric, why do the Blazers have to trade Deandre Ayton?
I feel like you can look at his box score numbers like last night and be like, yeah, what's the problem? But there's just way too many effort issues when it comes to Ayton. And there was a play last night where Denny tried to tell him to go out and guard someone. He just stood there and someone got an open three that Denny was pointing at him to guard. And it's just stuff like that. We just know that he has issues with effort. Chauncey even called it out 2 games ago. And in my opinion, when you have a young roster that's trying to do things and you just drafted what is hopefully your cornerstone center for a decade, I feel like having a guy who does not give maximum effort on the court just is not something you want to do, especially when that player is your highest paid player on the team. And so those two things, I feel like I'm not necessarily saying DeAndre Ayton's a cancer, but that can lead to locker room tensions and really bad things in the locker room because of that kind of situation. And I feel like you just have to move on before it starts to manifest into some of your younger players that you don't want it to do.
Yeah, very well said. I echo all those things, and he's the third best center on this team, in my opinion, but he's the highest paid player on this team. Imagine if you can free up that money. Therefore, the goal in terms of a trade return is, to me, simply an expiring contract. I don't care about getting any sort of value back outside of just getting that contract off this roster, increasing the Blazers' flexibility going into the offseason. Maybe they have cap space. Maybe they just have room to absorb salary in a trade beneath the tax. Maybe you can generate a trade exception as part of an Ayton trade, right? It's for all the same reasons why people excuse trading Norman Powell's $18 million a year and Robert Covington's $11 million a year to increase flexibility, right? Those guys didn't add up to as much as DeAndre Ayton does right now, and that's actually a guy that you should trade for an expiring contract for flexibility reasons, because he doesn't have value on that contract and shouldn't have value on that contract, given that he's an average starter at best in the league, but defensively is probably below average, and offensively doesn't really do anything all that special other than, I guess, hit mid-range shots. And he doesn't get to the line, he doesn't shoot threes, he doesn't handle the ball, he doesn't pass. So that is the goal, an expiring contract for DeAndre Ayton. Eric, do you agree with that?
Yeah.
Alrighty.
It's tough to argue with it.
Yeah.
The only people, I mean, it really feels like the only people that argue is people who just look at the box scores and be like, how could he? Like, I saw multiple people being like, how can you tell me DeAndre Ayton didn't play well last night? Look at his numbers and all that stuff. He's like the only player that did play well.
Yep.
But if you just watch him the entire game, you realize why that statement is a little crazy to say.
I've always said he's a perfect test for a basketball fan because his highlights look good, but if you watch him game in, game out, you know that his highlights are highlights, right? Like, does he do the little things? What is he, I want to see him missing shots, right? Highlights are just guys making shots. Okay, cool. You watch full highlights. He makes a bunch of mid-range shots. He looks like freaking Dirk. All right, great. But he's the perfect test for somebody that, box score watches and highlight watches versus watches him on a game in, game out basis, because watching him game in, game out, it's very clear what his weaknesses are and how much of a detriment they are to this team and to this rebuild. So, expiring contract, we're going to try and keep it realistic with these goals as much as possible.
So Jonathan Evers asked a good question. Would you attach anything if you had to get rid of him?
Given that we'd sell second-round picks, if they attach 2 seconds to Ayton to get an expiring contract for him just to get off his contract, then I am okay with that.
Yeah, I was all jacked about second-round picks last year, and then they just completely wasted them. So I completely agree.
Yep. And it's funny because every time we bring up, I'm saying expiring contract for a reason, because if we bring up actual trade packages, we'll bring up Ben Simmons is a big expiring contract, and then I'll get somebody in the comments that says, why the hell do you guys want Ben Simmons? He's worse than Ayton in all those aspects that you criticize Ayton for. And it's like, no, it's not even about that. We could buy out Ben Simmons and he could never play a game for this team, and then we don't have any money on the books this offseason compared to having Ayton on the books at $35 million. So we save $35 million in the offseason. That's the point of getting an expiring contract, and that should be the goal for all three players we're going to talk about. Jerami Grant, okay, the case is a little bit different. His effort isn't quite as bad, but he's just not the type of player that I think the Blazers are trying to, A, acquire, B, build around. Who'd they acquire this past offseason? They acquired Deni Avdija, Donovan Clingan. Both guys, like, legitimately good defenders, legitimate defensive difference makers in ways that Grant isn't. Both guys really good rebounders for their position. Both guys can really pass, really smart players, really selfless players, and both guys play hard all the time, okay? And I can't attribute really any of those traits to Jerami Grant, especially the rebounding issues. He has his own effort lapses. His defense, I've always said since the Blazers acquired him, it's a little overrated, especially how the Blazers like to use him, which is defending guards and on the ball. Norman Powell recently cooked him. And he just doesn't really fit the identity that the Blazers are trying to build, which is we're going to get out and run. We're going to move the ball, make the smart pass, and we're going to play hard all the time. We're going to scrap. We're going to hustle. We're going to rebound. He is one of the biggest reasons why the Blazers are the worst defensive rebounding team in the league right now. And when you look at his contract, 4 years left, 30 years of age, the time to move off of him is now, because if he continues to struggle like he's struggled this year, there's a good chance that that contract becomes a negative value and you have to attach assets to give it up. I don't think we're there yet, but the Blazers definitely got to move Jerami Grant. You got Deni Avdija sitting right behind him, ready to move into his starting spot. I said this past offseason, Deni Avdija is a better player. A lot of people disagreed with me. I think more people would agree with me right now. He just does the little things, does the small things, does the things that the Blazers are trying to build around that Jerami Grant doesn't. That is why the Blazers have to trade Jerami Grant as soon as possible.
Yeah, it's just... once again, Jerami Grant, great guy. Always respect him for wanting to come here and try to win with Dame. But it just, to me, it's obvious he just stands out as a guy who just does not fit in the direction this team wants to play. And it often results in a lot of ball stopping moments with him. His shot selection has just been brutal at times this year. And he plays so many minutes too. I think it's also a crutch for Chauncey for some reason. And sometimes you got to kick out the crutch, right? Just let this team fall. And I don't think that's a bad thing. So if you can get anything for Jerami at this point, I think you do it. And you just be happy that you re-signed him and got something out of nothing instead of letting him walk for nothing. And one aspect that was brought up, I'm sorry, I forgot who brought it up last night, but an angle we haven't talked about that might help us here with this situation. Clutch Sports kind of runs the league right now. And they do... They do. I don't know what to call it. I don't know if it's necessarily dirty deals or whatever, but they will force teams' hands with some of their clients and do try to manufacture trades to certain teams or certain situations that are best for their clients. And it does affect. They have so many clients on their roster right now that it does affect pretty much every team how you deal with them. So I'm hoping that this whoever commented about that last night, which I hadn't really been thinking about too much lately, but we famously the Anthony Davis trade to LA was forced by Clutch, and so like if the Blazers are like, hey, we got you this $160 million contract and you're now ruining your trade value, like you need to try to get your value up some other way through Rich Paul or whatever. I think maybe that's our one saving grace here, that maybe Clutch can kind of force some action there.
Yeah. Yeah, that's an interesting wrinkle, an interesting element to that. I think, with that being said, with his play this year, the goal for Jerami Grant should be an expiring contract or contracts and a first-round pick.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you get a solid young player and he's not an expiring contract, I'm okay with that contract going forward, assuming it's somebody on a rookie contract, right? If you get somebody like Jarris Walker, you can forego the first-round pick. If you got Jarris Walker and expiring hypothetically, like that is an justifiable trade for Jerami Grant as well. So first-round pick or a good enough young player and expiring contracts is the goal for Jerami Grant.
Absolutely.
All right, now we get into the interesting one. So Anfernee Simons, I talked about last night. He's putting, it seems, too much pressure on himself in Portland to replicate what Dame did. And even Chauncey in a recent interview talked about how Ant is slowing things down too much, playing too much in the half court because he learned under Dame and CJ in the past and kind of plays a similar style to those guys, which is half court heavy, don't get out and run. Chauncey also said he points out to Anfernee Simons that Delano Banton is always pushing the pace and getting opportunities to score because of how he pushes the pace in transition and brings the ball up the floor, and that's something Chauncey's trying to work on with Ant. We actually saw Ant get a couple buckets like that last night where he was able to attack in late transition and get to the rim because the defense wasn't set on him, right? But the point is, about trading him is he has to live up to a lot, replacing Damian Lillard, and the time he missed with an illness. I heard from a couple different people that was actually like a panic attack, an anxiety attack. He's putting too much pressure on himself. He's trying to replace Dame. He's trying to be the next Dame, and that's not good, right? And I think that's a big part of the reason he's struggling. I think ultimately it would be good to get a fresh start for Anfernee Simons. I think it would be good for him to send him somewhere else where he doesn't have to be the number one option on a really bad team, where he doesn't have to live in Dame's shadow, and he might go somewhere else and tear it up because of that. But it just seems to not be going well here in Portland for him. And, of course, you got Shaedon Sharpe, you got Scoot Henderson, you got two young guards behind him. You might draft a guard in the future if those guys don't pan out and you're in the lottery the next couple of years. You don't really have necessarily a need for Anfernee Simons. He's a gifted scorer, but he's not a good enough scorer to be the number one or probably even the number two on a really, really good team. And then if you slot him down in the pecking order, he doesn't really do enough other things well enough, in my opinion, to be like a good role player type of guy. He's just a microwave scorer, can facilitate a little bit, but you look at how Portland's trying to build things, they're going to need a star scorer or two. Anfernee Simons isn't quite there, and I don't think it'll pan out here in Portland for him. And then they seem to want to fill out the roster with guys like I talked about, Denny Avdia, Donovan Clingan types that can do multiple things, that can play defense, that connective passers, right, play fast, play in transition, and I just feel like Anfernee Simons doesn't really fit that. So for all those reasons, I think it would make sense for the Blazers and for Anfernee Simons for the Blazers to move off from him.
Yeah, as much as I've wanted it to work out with Anfernee here, I just obviously something is amiss there, and it's weird because his usage is down, but his unassisted shots are also way down. Percentage assisted is way down. So yeah. He's having to basically. I think this comes back to Chauncey. So I can't fully blame any of these guys, but there's way too much having to create out of nothing, and I find it hard to believe that a coach would want a team to play a certain way and you have all these players not doing it. It just how can you not get them to run more? It just does not make sense if you're hammering that home. So I feel like it's just because I had hopes that, part of me was Anfernee's right now heading into the season the best one out of the guards. That's not saying he will be the best of the three, but there was a world where he would be the best of those three, and Sharpe and Scoot never even get to his level, let alone better than him. But I think now it's almost like, well, even if he is the best player, who cares? Because that's not good enough, So I wouldn't mind exploring, new options at guard for any of these guys we talked about trading. And that's something that would have been crazy like a year ago. Like we're talking about trading a guard, not acquiring a guard. But we talked about this with like a guy like Devin Carter who's been hurt. It might be like kind of a diamond in a rough that no one's talking about right now. If you can get someone like that in a trade like this and he's your third guard moving forward, I kind of like that. So I would do everything I could to obviously maximize his value. I wouldn't just give him away, but I feel like both for the Blazers and for Anfernee Simons, the best thing at this point might just be for him to have a new situation.
Yeah. And if Scoot and Sharp are never as good as him, then it probably makes sense for the Blazers to draft a guard at the top of the draft in future years anyway.
Yeah.
So that can hopefully be better than Simons, Sharp, or Scoot are. So that's where you can move off from him. And I think it might feel a little bit low to some people, but I think the goal for him is about the same as it is for Jerami Grant. A first-round pick or a good young player plus an expiring contract is the goal for Anfernee Simons. Would you go higher than that? Is that too high? What do you think?
I mean, I don't think you're going to get more than that, so I think you have to settle for that if it's available. I like prior to the season, I wouldn't have traded him for less than 2 first-round picks, but much like Jeremy, I don't think the value's there. So you're either going to have to keep him and just say, hey, we didn't get enough value and we think he's more valuable to us than trading him, which like we discussed might be the wrong move in this situation. But you're either going to have to do that or just with all three of these guys trade them for less than you probably wanted to, and you're going to have to take a little bit of a PR hit on those.
Yep. I mean, out of these three guys, if you can get back somehow all expirings and 2 average first-round picks, I think that's definitely good enough. If you take these guys' contracts off the books, that's $90 million coming off the books in the offseason if you trade them for expirings.
But we have to hit the salary floor, Torrey.
I mean, there's with the new CBA, yeah. No, I know, but I'm going to respond to the people that actually have that argument. With the insane new CBA, with the super tax and all that, there is going to be teams trying to dump salary and maybe more desperate to dump salary than ever. You want to be one of the teams that has the cap space, that has the flexibility to absorb that salary and get back assets. So if you can get back expiring contracts for these 3 players and 1 or 2 first-round picks, the expirings you get back might help you get another first-round pick in the future if you take on some salary, right? Or, I don't know, if you have $30, $40 million of cap space, throw a 1-year, like, $35 million deal with Naz Reid and have him come off the bench behind Klingon and then try and keep him long term. And, maybe Minnesota matches that, but you can tie up Minnesota's money if they have to match that. You know what I mean? You can play some games with some of these other teams. You just have multiple options, right? Even if you don't like one of the options that the Blazers potentially have or could do with all this money, it's a good thing for them to have options. It's a good thing for them to have flexibility and be able to pivot in a bunch of different ways and have the opportunity to accumulate assets if there's a team that needs to dump salary, compared to last offseason, the Blazers were trying to duck the tax. They were not in any position to accumulate assets by taking on any salary. So that is the goal for trading these 3 guys: shed as much of the salary as possible, get back as many first-round picks and or young players as possible, and then you look at the offseason and there's a lot of opportunity for the Blazers. Now, you also got to try and trade Matisse Thybulle because he's on his contract, and that's more money they can free up, so there's still some other guys to potentially move if you really want to maximize the assets you get back and your flexibility. I think Robert Williams has the most trade value as any of the veterans on the Blazers roster, but is the most keepable Blazers veteran at the same time. And also, he doesn't make a ton of money, but you could also get back some assets for him and clear his money as well, depending on how much flexibility you want this offseason. All I know is it's a good thing to have flexibility. These veterans got to go, and that is the goal in terms of what the Blazers should get back for them. Anything else, Eric?
Well, how excited would it be to actually be players in free agency for once, like
Yeah,
with legitimate money to throw around. I know we're gonna have to overpay, but like that's better than 2 out of the last 3 years where we haven't signed a single person of note in free agency.
exactly. So, have the options, and even if it's role players, if you have the option to sign a veteran role player that actually fits, that's a good thing, right? You want veterans that fit what you're trying to build. The problem is these guys don't really fit that, and that's why they gotta go. So,
Yep. Completely.
anyway, that wraps up Blazers Uprise Live. Thank you guys for watching the stream. We'll be live again on Friday. We got 3 days off, so hopefully you don't miss us too much. Make sure to follow us on Twitter. Join our Discord if you want to interact with us during that off time. We'll be checking out the NBA Cup games and all that. And then Friday we come back with the stream after the Blazers play the Spurs, and we'll have picks against the spread before that right here on the second channel. Anyway, have a good rest of your night. Have a good week ahead. The Blazers, we'll see how they bounce back from this time off after this terrible recent stretch. And shout out to BetUS for sponsoring the stream. If you want to get in on those NBA Cup games, the spread lines are live right now on BetUS. Use promo code YouTube150 for a promo. Anyway, we're out of here. We will catch you guys Friday. Until then, as always, peace out. Go Blazers.